What's going on, everybody? This is Junebug Obama. I'd like to welcome everybody to a brand new edition of the Junebug Report. And I have a very interesting show today. I'm going to start off by answering an email I got from a young man who wants my advice. He's having some problems dating women because he is short. So I'm going to answer his question and give him some dating tips. So we're going to do dating tips for short men. I'm also going to review and give my reaction to a documentary I recently saw. It's called Whore's Glory. That's the name of the documentary, Whore's Glory. And I found it to be very interesting. And occasionally when I come across a book that I've read that I really like, or a documentary or a movie or something I've seen, I'm going to share my thoughts about it with everybody here also, in case you might want to check it out. Okay, so we're going to talk about that. And last but not least today, we're going to talk about the Cleveland bus incident. This is a topic that everybody wanted me to talk about during the time I was on my hiatus, because I wasn't active during the time that this incident happened. But yes, I have opinions about it, and I figure I'm going to talk about whatever the hell I want to talk about, whether it's an old topic or whether it's a new topic. It doesn't matter. I'm going to break the rules here. So let's kick this off with this email that I got from this young man. And I'm going to read the email, and then we're going to get into this discussion. He says, "What's up, Junebug? I want to ask you a question that's been on my mind for days. My question to you is, does height matter to women? I'm 19 years old and I'm around 5'4", 5'5". I am not that bad looking and I'm kind of muscular. I ask you this question because I feel a little insecure about my height with women being so damn shallow. I see girls checking me out every once in a while, but due to my shyness and insecurity, I never approach them. How can I overcome this issue? I would love it if you would do a video on this topic." Okay, so that's his email. And here is my response. There's good news and bad news for this young man. And I'm going to give you the good news. Well, I'm going to give you the bad news first, because that's what everybody else does. The bad news is, yes, in many cases, height does matter to women. Women do take physical characteristics into consideration when they choose who they want to date, when they choose who they want to mate with. And generally, women do like a man who is tall. Now, the average height for a man in the United States is 5'9.5" and that's according to the National Center for Health Statistics. Yes, I did the research on it. So you are below average in height, and you already know this. At least in America, you're below average in height. And yes, I'm not going to lie to you. There are some women who are looking at that and might reject you because of it. I'm not here to lie to you, okay? So that's the bad news. But the good news is, can you still attract women? Yes, you can. You're going to have a little bit more difficult time because of your height, but I'm going to give you some dating tips here for short men. These are dating tips for short men, but a lot of these tips will apply to any young man who's trying to date women out here. I'm going to give you 3 tips. I'm going to expound on each of these 3 tips, and I think these will make a significant difference. Okay, tip number 1 is to control your emotions about your height. What I mean is, don't allow yourself to be insecure, to feel upset, to feel sad or hostile or angry at women because they like tall men. So you can't do anything about that, but you can develop in other areas that women find attractive. Some of us are given a certain set of circumstances in life, and we just have to make the best of those. And we have to just figure out, okay, what do I have going for myself and how can I exploit that? Like Stevie Wonder is a good example of that in the area of music. Now, he easily could have said, okay, I'm blind, so that's it. It's a wrap. And he could have just felt insecure about being blind, but he evaluated and said, okay, well, I have this interest in music, and he developed that, and he became great in music. He didn't let the fact that he was blind stop him. So don't let the fact that you're short stop you from approaching or talking to women. You said that you're handsome. You said that you have women looking at you, but you said that you don't approach them. So if women are giving you eye contact, that's usually an indicator of interest. So you need to talk to these women and see what happens. It may not be as bad as you think. And especially, this is very important here, especially don't get mad about it. You know, don't sit back and look at women and just be mad and just like, yeah, man, look at those shallow, groupie, skank ass bitches over there talking to those basketball players. That's all they want is somebody tall. Don't have that type of dialogue going on in your head. You may not want to be thinking that type of stuff because women aren't looking for the guy that's hostile or insecure or has some kind of emotional baggage. They're looking for the guy that has some social skills and the guy who is confident and the guy who is fun to be around. And how you develop that is you have to talk to people. You have to talk to people. You have to start talking to everybody, men, women, and children. And you have to develop a rapport, learn how to develop rapport to people, with people. And women will see that you're comfortable and that you know how to handle yourself in social settings. And more than likely, they're going to be more comfortable around you and they're going to be able to get to know you. And maybe they'll find other traits that they like about you. And they may be able to overlook the fact that you're shorter than what they normally date. I'm sure that may have happened to you with a certain woman that initially she may not have been everything that you would have liked to have had physically. But once you got around her and you started talking to her, it sparked something and you started to connect to her without being so fixated on, okay, she doesn't have a 38 double D's, but I don't really care that she doesn't have 38 double D's. I like this girl. So that's possible that could happen. And one other thing I want to say about the emotional aspects that might help you out here is, as far as women being shallow, the reason you shouldn't get upset about that is because we as men are shallow also. Let's just be honest. Let's keep it real. You see men dating women not for their personality or because they're honest, because they're good women. We know that men, some men, not all, especially men in entertainment, we see getting women who are former skanks and ex-hoes and ex-prostitutes and ex-strippers. Men are dating Superhead and Amber Rose and women like that simply because they are physically attractive. So we do it too. We're shallow. And moving right along here, the second dating tip for short men is that you have to compensate for your height in other areas. I'm going to repeat that again. You have to compensate for your height, for your lack of height in other areas. This means that if you're the shortest man in the room, make sure that you're one of the cleanest men in the room, one of the best groomed men in the room. Make sure that you're one of the best dressed men in the room. Make sure that you're one of the best conversationalists in the room, and just have a great sense of humor in general, not just about other people, but have a little bit of humor about yourself and your height. Humor mixed with confidence is very powerful with women. If some woman actually brings up the fact that you're shorter, have some kind of a funny comeback. Let her know that once she goes short, she's not going to go back to tall men again. In other words, just have some kind of a comeback that shows that, yes, I'm short, but I'm not insecure about it. And also, make sure that you're doing something with yourself career-wise that is going to make her want to consider overlooking your height. And I don't have to mention the financial aspects of all of this. Now, I know you're 19, and obviously you're not going to be a Donald Trump at 19, but long term, develop yourself in your career. I don't know if you're in college or not. I don't know what you're pursuing career-wise, but that's going to be critical and crucial long term is your financial success. So I hope that you're working on that part of life. I hope that you're getting yourself involved in a career so that you can make a lot of money. Not necessarily saying that you have to give your money to women or be a trick or anything like that, but I am saying that the more money you have, the less faults you're going to have to women. The more they're going to be willing to bend the rules and overlook whatever flaws or imperfections you have, including your height. And the third and final tip here for short men is to pursue women who are shorter than you. I mean, you don't just go after. I mean, if you're 5'4", 5'5", don't be trying to get Tyra Banks and people her height. OK, go after somebody who's a little shorter than you, somebody who's 5'2", 5'3". You might be able to have more success because if nothing else, you are taller than her. Short women do like tall men, but at least you're taller than her. OK, there's some cute girls that are really short. So those are just 3 tips. I hope that helps. And if anybody else has some other tips for this young man, you can add those in the text comment section. You know, there's a lot of other things I can say, but of course my time is limited. Not trying to keep you here for 5 hours because I got to move on to the next subject, which is Whore's Glory, the documentary that I saw yesterday. Now, this documentary, it came out around 2011. And what this is about, and by the way, I saw this on Netflix Watch Instantly. So you can catch this if you're a Netflix member, or maybe you can rent it or something. If you're interested, you'll have to listen to what I say to determine whether or not you're interested or not in seeing this. I'm not saying that you should necessarily watch it, but I'm just sharing my thoughts and opinions about it. And what this is about is this filmmaker by the name of Michael Glawogger. I can't even pronounce his last name. Is Glawogger. Not sure how to pronounce that, but this is a foreign documentary. And what it's about is he takes cameras to 3 different countries and he follows the lives of prostitutes in these countries who either work in a red light district or they work in brothels. So he went to Thailand, and there's a brothel there called the Fish Tank, and he interviewed the women and he followed them on their day-to-day experiences, and he even interviewed some of the customers and some of the staff members who work at this big brothel. And the women at that particular brothel, they work behind a big glass window. And the customers come in and the customers can sit and watch the girls behind the glass window and pick the girl that they want. And he also went to Bangladesh and he followed some prostitutes there who work at a brothel who are extremely poor. And he chronicled the same thing. He chronicled their lives and their experiences. And then he went to Mexico, and I forgot the area in Mexico, but it's like a little red light district where they have these little, I guess you could say, apartments or studios where the women are standing outside of the doorways and the men drive through and pick what woman they want, and then they go in the room and they have sex. Now, I guess one of the things that caught my attention about this documentary and not only made me want to watch it, but made me want to talk about it now is the fact that here in America, as men, we're always talking about how horrible our women are as opposed to women in other countries. And this documentary, I think, adds some perspective and some balance to the whole discussion about foreign women. We know there's some great foreign women out here who are raised up with morals and who would make great wives, but there's also some foreign women who are equivalent to chicken heads and hood rats. And this documentary shows, I guess, some of the chicken heads in some other countries. It's not just America that has chicken heads. I mean, some guys in America think that the women outside of America are so wonderful. Even the poor women are so wonderful. So this documentary just shows a different side to all of that. And that was what was interesting about it and made me keep watching it all the way through to the end. And there's a lot of metaphorical aspects to this documentary that I think he was trying to make a point about. He even had a scene where he shows some dogs that were hanging around, some stray dogs that were having sex right on the grounds of the brothel in Thailand. And he just has this camera on these dogs having sex. And he wanted to make a point that a lot of us are just animals. And they interviewed the girls, and the girls talked about what it's like to have sex. They talk about the competition in the brothel when they bring in new girls. And many of these girls were not really that cute, especially when he went to Bangladesh. Boy, I tell you, those were some tore up ass women. And in Mexico, it was even worse. Now, I'm not saying that the women typically in these countries are not attractive. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that these particular areas that they went to were areas where these women were just broke. And in Bangladesh, the worst of the worst circumstances for these women, man. And they had a woman in Bangladesh who was managing the place, and she ran it like a pimp, because this was in subtitles. There was very little English at all spoken in this documentary. It was all subtitles. But the stuff she was saying that they translated, she was calling them all kind of bitches, and her pimp hand was strong. This was an old Bangladesh woman. Her pimp hand was strong, man. She had them hoes in check. I was like, damn, I felt like I was watching Iceberg Slim, a Bangladesh version of Iceberg Slim. And these women were real serious about religion, but they were hoes at the same time. A lot of these women in all of these countries, just like in Thailand, these women would say a prayer and pray for clients and customers before they entered the brothel. They would say a little prayer. And in Bangladesh, they would tell the women to not have oral sex for religious purposes. But they were having sex. They were selling their bodies. They would get down, open their legs, and do missionary position. But they wouldn't have oral sex because, that's wrong. God wouldn't like that. So it was that aspect of it that I found to be ironic, is that they always maintain some religious morality, even though they were selling their bodies. And in Mexico, when they went to that area, I didn't like that segment of the documentary because they really started to get unnecessarily graphic, meaning they showed a lot of nudity, and they actually even followed a customer in the room and videotaped the entire sex that he had with this particular prostitute. But mind you, this was nothing titillating. It was a little bit disgusting. And they had one woman who was dancing around naked, trying to get the attention of customers. And again, these women were not attractive. So I'm not recommending necessarily that you watch it unless you just want to see a slice of life in another country that you may have never visited or may never visit. The nudity, I think, was, I don't know what his intention was, because if you're going to show me some nudity and some sex, don't show me somebody with a big ass pot belly and a flat ass and missing teeth dancing around naked and then opening up her legs. I'm not trying to see that. Okay, that's like watching, what's this video out that everybody keeps trying to get me to watch with some woman eating a tampon? Stop sending me that shit. I'm not watching a woman eating a tampon. That's nasty. And over the years on YouTube, people do these reaction videos. You all can do all the reaction videos you want to 2 girls, 1 cup, 2 horses, 1 man. No, I'm not watching none of that. I'm not watching any of that nasty shit. It was hard enough for me to get through this documentary, okay? But I got through it. And for those men who keep going on and on about wanting to go overseas and have sex, you need to watch this documentary and make sure that if that is your ambition, is to go find prostitutes in another country, you may want to check out the prostitutes in your own city first before you go to another country thinking that it's this paradise of drop dead gorgeous women. Those women look raggedy and funky, and luckily it was only a documentary and I couldn't smell probably some of the odors that were coming out of these women. And before the All Police shows up, let me clarify and make sure that you get what I'm saying here, okay? Because people love to twist what you say on YouTube. I'm not saying that all women or even all prostitutes outside of the United States fall into the category that I just described. There are beautiful women all around the world in all these various countries. Even the countries that I mentioned have beautiful women in certain areas. OK, we know this, whether they're prostitutes or otherwise, you can find beautiful women. So I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that this particular filmmaker decided to show us the most broke down, raggedy, funky looking women I had ever seen in my life. That's what he showed us. He chose to show us the worst of the worst. OK, that's what he did, with the exception of Thailand. There was a few cute girls in the brothel in Thailand. That was more of an upscale place. But the other two, raggedy as hell. Enough said. And finally here for this episode, the grand finale, of course, that everybody's been wanting me to talk about is the Cleveland bus incident. Wow. I mean, that was probably one of the biggest chicken head hood rat stories of the year. There should be a trophy for chicken heads or ratchet hood rat ass behavior. But basically, I know you all already know the story. It took place in Cleveland, and there was a bus driver who was minding his own business and driving the bus, and this hood rat ass girl got on the bus. He was like in his 50s, I think, older gentleman, and she was in her 20s, and they played the dozens back and forth. She couldn't find her bus fare or the card or whatever they use in Cleveland, right? And they got into an argument, and it escalated into her hitting him. And he also said that she spit on him, but the angles that I saw wasn't close enough to actually show her doing that. And she said she didn't do it. So I don't know whether she did that or not, but you can clearly see that she did hit him first. And there was a pause for a moment there where she stood back, and he got up and he hit her in the face so hard, I thought I was watching the Incredible Hulk hit Loki in the Avengers movie. I mean, that was the hardest hit I think I've seen on videotape in a long time as far as a man hitting a woman. That's the hardest I've seen since Rayon McIntosh. That was the most brutal punch. And I guess it comes down to what made this man hit her this hard. Should he have hit her this hard? Should he have hit her at all? These are some of the things that people were talking about whenever this discussion came up. Of course, it was on World Star Hip Hop. But in my opinion, she did trigger all of this. Of course she did. Of course. She should have gotten on and been a respectful lady. But as we know, the respect between men and women in America is gone. And not only is he a man, but he's an elder to her. So if you have any home training, you are respectful to your elders. And she was not. And, you know, he was trying to drive the bus. He was doing his job. And of course, it is dangerous. It's dangerous to do anything that's going to distract a bus driver from driving the bus when there's other people there. He could have an accident. So she was jeopardizing the safety of herself and the bus driver and everybody else on that bus. So she was 1000% wrong. She brought all of this on herself, and maybe next time she'll behave differently towards a man who is a lot heavier than her, a lot bigger than her, and a lot stronger than her. Now, all of that being said, as I look back on it now and think about it, I think that there was a way in which he could have handled this situation where he didn't have to end up losing his job and losing his pension. The first thing to do, or the first thing that he could have done, this is just another alternative. I'm not saying that he necessarily handled it the wrong way, but I don't think I would have been arguing with her in the first place. I just feel like this. It's not necessary, practical, or constructive to have an argument with a crazy person, or even a person who is acting crazy. The same thing applies. The argument in and of itself was a waste of time, and it was unprofessional on his part. When you're in a situation where you have a career or a job where you deal with the public, even though they may be disrespectful to you or say something rude to you, that doesn't mean that you have to come back with something rude towards them. And going back and forth and playing the dozens, even if you're doing it for play and for fun, that's something that he could have avoided doing, because that, as I look back on the footage, the going back and forth is what led to ultimately her punching him. And she was 1,000% wrong for punching him. You know, the whole phrase is sticks and stones. He said something about her face. Everybody on the bus broke up laughing, and then she got mad and she hit him. She was 1,000% wrong about that, but he should never have been having a conversation with her like that in the first place. It was inappropriate for him to do that, even if she started it. I would have ignored her, or I would have just said, ma'am, sit down, or pay for your fare, ma'am. That's all you have to do. And I wouldn't have been going back and forth talking about her face, even if she had said something rude to me. That was the first thing, was to not say anything bad back to her. Don't stoop to her level. Don't play the dozens. Don't talk about her moms. None of that stuff. Okay. Now, if he ignores her, let's say he does ignore her and she's still fussing at him. She's still arguing. She's still using profanity. She's still standing up, which I don't think she would have did all of that. I think if he had ignored her, she would have sat down. But let's say hypothetically that didn't happen that way. Let's say he ignored her and she's still standing there. She's still screaming. She's still being rude. She's still being disrespectful. At that point, he can stop the bus and call the police. That's another alternative that he could have. He could just stop the bus and say, ma'am, I asked you to sit down and you're still standing and you are being rude. And we're not going to go anywhere until you sit down or you exit the bus. Those are your two options. If you don't do either of those two options, I'm going to call the police. And if she's still being rowdy after that, which I don't think she would be, if she said, I ain't getting off the bus, I ain't going no damn where, I have every right to be on this damn bus and I ain't going no damn where. If she did that, he says, okay, I'm not moving this bus, because you see, she got on the bus to get to a certain destination. He could say, I'm refusing to move this bus. That would get everybody else on his side on the bus. They were instigators at first. He could have called the police and said, I got a rowdy person on the bus. I'm on the corner of this street and that street, and she's refusing to leave the bus, and she's a violent individual, and I will not continue to drive this bus under these circumstances because she's a threat to our safety officer, and I'll sit here and wait till police gets here. Now, at that point, he's got the upper hand, and she only has two options at that point, both of which he would win in the end. Either she gets off the bus and she's gone, in which case he has won. He can just drive off and it's over with, and he keeps his job and keeps the pension. Or she waits there until the police gets there and she gets arrested. In that case, also he wins. So that was another option. I'm just throwing out another way he possibly could have handled the situation, maybe better. But I do have a lot of respect for the man for standing up for himself and actually standing up for men. Because I can tell that we're starting to get to a point in this day and age where men are getting tired of women hitting us and assaulting us and being able to fall back on the, oh, I'm a woman, or, oh, you're not supposed to hit a woman, it's morally wrong. Women are not going to be able to fall back on that and be able to assault us, because men are starting to hit women back to get the point across that you are not allowed to assault me just because you're a woman and I'm a man. And some things are worth losing your job over. And for him, this was one of those things. And I wish him well. I really do wish this guy well. And I understand why he did what he did. Okay. So that wraps up another edition of the Junebug Report. Hope you've enjoyed the show. And if you have a question for me that you'd like for me to read, and I won't say it's you, if you want to write to me with a question, you can write to me here, or you can write to me at my Hotmail address, which is JunebugObama@hotmail.com. Feel free to share your thoughts, opinions, and feedback. Take care.